AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate. How can you analyze data in S3 using SQL queries? Amazon Athena allows data analysts to use SQL to query and analyze data in S3. Which service would you use to build a data warehousing solution? Amazon Redshift is a data warehousing service that supports analyzing large quantities of data efficiently. How can you do large-scale data analytics on AWS? Let's discuss a few AWS services that can be of help here. Use Amazon EMR for big data processing, AWS Glue for ETL, Amazon Redshift for data warehousing, and Amazon Athena to query and analyze data in S3 using SQL. Which service can provide highly scalable, secure data storage for a data lake on AWS? Structured and unstructured data can be stored in data lakes in underlying storage S3, which is a highly scalable, cost-efficient storage. Let's look at various analytic services. Amazon Redshift is a petabyte scale data warehousing service. Redshift Spectrum Query can be used to run SQL queries from Redshift directly against data stored in S3. Amazon Athena is a serverless query service which can be used to query data in S3 with SQL. Amazon EMR is a managed Hadoop framework. AWS Glue is an ETL service. Amazon QuickSight is a business intelligence and reporting tool. How would you design a multi-step serverless workflow? AWS Step Functions is a serverless workflow orchestration service. How would you implement event-driven architecture on AWS? Amazon Event Bridge is a serverless event bus that simplifies building event-driven architectures by providing a central hub for routing events from various sources to targets like Lambda functions. How can you securely share resources across AWS accounts? Use AWS Resource Access Manager to securely share resources across accounts in an organization while maintaining ownership and control over these shared resources. How can you automate patch management for your EC2 instances? Use AWS Systems Manager Patch Manager to automate the process of patching managed instances with latest security updates and patches. How can you track configuration changes in your account over a period of time? Let's go over some AWS config and monitoring services. AWS config is for auditing config changes and compliance. AWS Systems Manager for centralized ops data and automation. AWS Resource Access Manager can be used to share AWS resources across accounts. Amazon CloudWatch is for monitoring logs, metric collection, and alarms. AWS CloudTrail records AWS API activity. AWS X-Ray for request tracing. Which type of EC2 instance is most cost-effective for hosting a database that will run for several years? Let's look at various EC2 instance launch types. On demand, available immediately without long-term commitment. Reserved, provides significant cost savings for committed usage. Spot, available at lower costs from unused capacity. and can be terminated anytime. Dedicated host, physical servers dedicated solely for your use, and there is per host billing. Dedicated instances, instances on hardware dedicated to you. There is per instance billing. How can you secure your web application on AWS against common web exploits? Using AWS WAF or Web Application Firewall, you can create a security layer for your web applications, protecting them from malicious attacks like SQL injection and cross-site scripting. WAF lets you define rules to block suspicious traffic, allow legitimate requests, and monitor web traffic for security threats. How can you protect your web application on AWS from DDoS attacks? AWS Shield, a managed DDoS protection service, safeguards your applications on AWS from distributed denial of service attacks that aim to overwhelm them. It offers two tiers, a standard free tier for basic protection and advanced paid tier for enhanced DDoS mitigation and response capabilities. How can you aggregate and view security status of your AWS resources and trigger actions based on that? We would use AWS Security Hub service here. It provides a central dashboard for security findings. It collects findings from built-in AWS security services like Guard Duty, Inspector, etc., partner security tools, and your own custom integrations. The findings can be sent to CloudWatch events, where event rules could be configured to trigger actions. How can you manage secrets in AWS? We can use AWS Secrets Manager to securely store, manage, and retrieve secrets. How do you secure VPCs and EC2 instances by restricting inbound and outbound traffic? A network access control list is an optional layer of security for your virtual private cloud or VPC that acts as a firewall for controlling traffic in and out of one or more subnets. Security groups act as a virtual firewall that controls inbound and outbound traffic for Amazon EC2 instances. They are associated with instances and contain rules that allow or restrict traffic based on protocols, ports, and source IP ranges. Let's go over some AWS security services. AWS WAF or Web Application Firewall can be used for protection against web exploits like SQL injection and so on. AWS Shield for protection against DDoS attacks. Amazon Guard Duty for threat detection and monitoring for malicious activity. Amazon Inspector for vulnerability scanning. AWS KMS for secure encryption key management. AWS Certificate Manager to provision, manage, and deploy SSL TLS certificates. Amazon Macie for data security and discovery, sensitive data identification, and automated data classification. Amazon Detective for analysis and investigation of security findings. AWS Security Hub. It aggregates security findings and provides compliance status across AWS accounts. AWS Cloud HSN is a hardware-based key storage. Amazon Cognito for authentication, authorization, and user management for web and mobile apps. How can you manage multiple AWS accounts in an organization and monitor for compliance across them? Use AWS Organizations for account management and AWS Config for compliance tracking. Let's go over some AWS organization related services. AWS Organizations to manage and govern multiple accounts centrally. AWS Control Tower for automated setup of multi-account environments. AWS Service Control Policies for enforcement of organizational policies. AWS Service Catalog provides curated catalog of approved AWS services. How can you restrict access to certain services across AWS accounts in an AWS organization? You can restrict available AWS services to various accounts in your AWS organization using service control policies. This restriction can be applied at the organization root level, organization unit level, or account level. You may do this to prevent account users from launching certain services without prior approval. How can you optimize the cost of your AWS resources? AWS Cost Explorer is a tool that allows you to view and analyze your AWS costs and usage in detail, identify cost drivers, and gain insights to better manage and optimize your costs. AWS Trusted Advisor is a service that provides real-time recommendations to optimize your AWS environment across cost, performance, security, fault tolerance, and service limits following best practices. How can you build customer support solutions with voice and text channels? Use Amazon Lex to build conversational interfaces, that is bots, and Amazon Connect for cloud-based contact centers to provide personalized customer service. How can you perform real-time data streaming and analytics on AWS? Amazon Kinesis data streams can be used for real-time data ingestion of large streams of data records. Amazon Managed Service for Apache Flink can read data from Kinesis data streams to process and analyze it in real time. What makes Amazon Kinesis highly scalable and fast? Kinesis has a distributed architecture which allows it to distribute data processing workload across multiple resources. The data stream is spread across multiple shards and each shard can be processed independently in parallel. This capability enables Kinesis to handle high data ingestion rates and process large volumes of data in real time. Let's go over some Kinesis related services. Amazon Kinesis data streams to ingest data streams at scale. Amazon Data Firehose to capture, transform, and load data streams into data stores like S3, Redshift, OpenSearch, etc. Amazon Managed Service for Apache Flink for real-time analytics on streaming data. Amazon Kinesis video streams to securely stream video from devices to AWS. How can you generate a trigger each time a tracked vehicle enters a specific geographic area? We could use Amazon Location Service, which lets us add location functionality to applications. It has features like geofencing, which define virtual boundaries or geofences. So any tracked vehicles that enters or leaves these geofences triggers geofence events, which we can use to send alerts, like notify the delivery personnel when nearing a stop or initiate other actions. How would you connect two VPCs? VPCs can be connected using VPC peering. It is a way to connect two VPCs so that they can communicate privately using their internal IP addresses. Remember that it doesn't work like a network hub. It's more like creating point-to-point connections. It cannot be used to create a transitive connection between other VPCs. How would you connect multiple VPCs? This can be done using a transit gateway, which acts like a central hub that simplifies connecting multiple VPCs and on-premise networks. It centralizes connections, reducing complex configurations compared to VPC peering's point-to-point approach. How can you enable internet access for EC2 instances in a private subnet in a VPC? We can use NAT Gateway for this, which allows instances in a private subnet to connect out to the internet, but prevents inbound connections from the internet reaching those instances. It acts like a translator, converting private IP addresses to a public IP for outbound traffic. Let's go over the difference between NAT instance and NAT gateway. NAT instance is a user-managed EC2 instance for NAT that requires manual configuration and is a potential single point of failure. NAT gateway is a fully managed AWS service that is scalable, highly available, and suitable for production workloads. How would you connect an on-premise network with AWS Cloud? AWS Direct Connect lets you establish a dedicated high bandwidth network connection between your on-premise network and AWS, bypassing the public internet. Site-to-site VPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel using IPsec to connect your on-premise network to your VPC in AWS. It allows controlled private communication between your resources over a secure tunnel. Let's go over some network connectivity types. VPC peering is a private connection between two VPCs. Transit Gateway is a centralized hub for connecting multiple VPCs, VPNs, and on-premise networks. It has a hub and spoke architecture. Direct Connect is a dedicated private network connection between on-premises and AWS. It provides low latency and high bandwidth connection. Site-to-site VPN is an encrypted connection between on-premises network and AWS VPC. It is a secure communication that uses IPsec protocol. How would you migrate database from Oracle to RDS? AWS DMS or Database Migration Service facilitates migrating data from one database to another, be it within AWS or between your on-premise environment and AWS. How can you export a database to S3, both initially and then for incremental changes? AWS DMS handles both initial and ongoing exports to S3. It can initially do a full data export from database to S3 and then continuously replicate changes from database to S3, keeping it synchronized. How can you deliver static content faster to end users around the world? Using CloudFront, a content delivery network service, you can speed up delivery of your website and app content like images and videos by caching them in a global network of edge locations. Users then access the content from the closest edge location, reducing latency and improving load times. An e-commerce company hosts a web application in a US region. How can they ensure that customers in Europe and Asia are able to access this web application without experiencing any lag? Normally, when a user accesses an application on AWS, it goes over public internet until it reaches the destination regional endpoint. This can be slow depending on network hops, available bandwidth, and so on. However, if an end user's request can travel through fast AWS global network, it can reach the application's endpoint in AWS faster, thereby delivering better performance. AWS Global Accelerator allows you to do exactly that. Therefore, it is a service to improve availability and performance of internet applications. Which service would you use to distribute incoming web traffic evenly across multiple EC2 instances? Elastic load balancers can distribute incoming traffic across multiple targets. Here are some routing services. Elastic Load Balancer. There are many kinds of these. Application load balancer. You would use this with web applications. It does not support static IP address. Network load balancer. When you want to work directly with TCP or UDP traffic, you would use this load balancer. It supports static IP address. Classic load balancer. This is legacy and no longer recommended for use. Gateway load balancer is used with virtual appliances. API gateway is a service that can route requests to APIs based on rules. CloudFront is a content delivery network that can cache content at edge locations. Global accelerator utilizes static anycast IP address to direct traffic over AWS global network to a healthy endpoint. Route 53 routes traffic based on DNS resolutions and provides DNS-based failover. You have a very large number of objects on S3 with unpredictable access patterns. What storage class is suitable for them? Let's look at various S3 storage classes. S3 Standard. This is the default storage class. S3 Intelligent Tiering. It is used when access patterns are not known. Data is automatically moved to the most cost-effective storage tier by monitoring access patterns. S3 Standard Infrequent Access. This is for long-lived, less frequently accessed data. You are charged for minimum 30 days. S3 One Zone Infrequent Access. Here the data is stored only in one availability zone. It is less expensive than standard infrequent access. S3 Glacier Instant Retrieval. This is for archiving data that is rarely accessed. Retrieval is quick and minimum storage period is 90 days. S3 Glacier Deep Archive. This is to archive rarely accessed data. It is the lowest cost data archiving solution. Retrieval time is in hours. Several EC2 instances in a VPC need fast concurrent access to 10 terabytes of common data. What storage should be used for this data? Let's look at various storage types. Amazon EFS or Elastic File System is a scalable shared file storage which can be accessed by multiple EC2 instances. Amazon EBS or Elastic Block Storage is a block storage for EC2 instances, and it provides persistent durable volumes, and you can create snapshots out of it. It has limitations around attaching it to multiple EC2 instances. Amazon S3 is a cost-effective object storage which is highly durable and scalable. EC2 Instance Store is a temporary block storage attached to EC2 instance. Amazon FSx is managed file storage for Windows and Linux systems. Which service can provide applications on your local premises access to S3 buckets over NFS? Let's look at various storage gateway types. File Gateway. It provides access to S3 as NFS or SMB file shares. Volume Gateway presents cloud-backed iSCSI block storage volumes to on-premise applications. Tape Gateway offers a virtual tape library for backup and archival needs. What is the most suitable method to transfer 50 terabytes of data from an on-premise network to AWS cloud within a few days, considering the existence of a site-to-site VPN between the on-premise network and AWS cloud? Let's look at Snow family of devices which offer offline data transfer to AWS. Snowball. This has a capacity of about 8 terabytes. Snowball Edge. This comes in various flavors like storage or compute optimized. For example, storage optimized has about 80 terabytes of HDD storage. Snow Mobile. This offers exabyte scale data transfer in a truck. It has a capacity of 100 petabytes. Which service can help you collect information on servers and applications running in your on-premise environment in order to plan for migration to AWS? Let's look at various migration services. AWS Application Discovery Service collects information on servers, running processes, and network connections in your on-premise environment. AWS Migration Hub can provide centralized tracking of application migrations. AWS Application Migration Service can migrate servers to AWS from on-premise or other cloud providers. VM import-export can import VM images from your existing environment to Amazon EC2. How can you add image and video analysis capabilities to your applications? Use Amazon Recognition for image and video analysis, including object detection, facial recognition, and content moderation. Let's look at various AI services. Amazon Recognition is for image and video analysis. Amazon Poly can be used for text-to-speech conversion. Amazon Lex is used for bot creation. Amazon Comprehend has natural language processing capabilities and can be used for sentiment analysis. Amazon Transcribe can be used for audio to text conversion. Amazon SageMaker is a platform for building, training, and deploying machine learning models. Amazon Personalize can create personalized recommendations using machine learning algorithms. Amazon Textrat can extract text and data from scanned documents. Amazon Forecast can generate accurate forecasts based on time series data using machine learning. How can you transport video files at scale on AWS? Use AWS Elemental Media Convert to convert source video files into multiple target formats for various devices. Let's look at various media services. AWS Elemental Media Convert is for file-based video transcoding, Media Live for live video processing and real-time encoding, Media Package for media content packaging, Media Store for durable media storage, Media Tailor for personalized ad insertion, and Amazon Interactive Video Service or IVS is a managed live streaming solution that also provides interactive experiences. How can you trace requests in your microservices application deployed on AWS? Using AWS X-Ray, we can track requests as they flow through the application across Lambda functions and other microservices. This helps identify bottlenecks, visualize request flow, and debug issues. A large company has deployed IoT devices around the world that captures real-time sensor data like temperature, humidity, etc. How can they efficiently ingest and store this high-volume data on cloud, which must be available for time-based analysis? The IoT devices can send sensor data to AWS IoT Core Service over MQTT, which is then filtered and routed using IoT Core rules and stored in a time stream database. TimeStream is a fast, scalable time series database which can efficiently store large streams of data points like sensor readings or application metrics with timestamps. This facilitates data analysis of recent and historical data over time. Let's look at various IoT services. AWS IoT Core is a message broker and has other features like Rules Engine. IoT Device Defender can monitor device behavior for security. IoT Device Management provides remote device management. IoT Greengrass extends AWS IoT cloud capabilities to the edge. IoT Sitewise can collect, organize, and analyze industrial data, monitor operations, and detect anomalies. IoT Analytics for analyzing data from IoT devices, and IoT TwinMaker provides digital representation of physical devices. How can you establish asynchronous bidirectional messaging connection between clients and server? WebSockets with API Gateway provides real-time two-way communication between web clients and backend services on AWS. This establishes a full duplex persistent connection allowing bidirectional data flow unlike traditional HTTP requests. API Gateway routes incoming WebSockets messages to appropriate backend services like Lambda functions. This setup is ideal for scenarios requiring live updates like chat apps or collaborative editing. What is the best deployment strategy to roll out new features to a subset of users or servers before full deployment? Let's look at various deployment strategies. Canary. This is an incremental or a progressive rollout of new code or features to a small subset of users. A/B testing. This is a split testing of two versions of something like a web page, app feature, etc. to gauge which version performs better. Blue-green. Here we maintain two environments like blue and green, and we could release new version on green environment and switch between the two environments to test. What is the process of moving on-premise applications to AWS without making changes and with minimal effort called? Which serverless database service is best suited for key value store? Amazon DynamoDB is a highly scalable serverless database service that can store data as key value pairs. Which of the following is a relational database with the features of high availability and low latency global reads? Amazon Aurora Global Database allows a single Amazon Aurora database to span multiple AWS regions, thereby supporting fast local reads with low latency in each region. Which AWS service would you use to deliver messages asynchronously only once and in the order it was received? Amazon SQS first in first out FIFO queues are perfect for this. They can deliver messages asynchronously in the order in which they were received. Which database service would you use to store connected datasets like social network graphs? Neptune is a serverless graph database that can store billions of relationships. Which service supports fan-out messaging to distribute messages to multiple subscribers? Simple Notification Service or SNS supports asynchronous messaging using topics to which subscribers can subscribe, so same message can be delivered to multiple subscribers. Which service can manage and scale containerized applications? Amazon Elastic Container Service or ECS can orchestrate and manage containers. Which AWS service is suitable for implementing serverless microservices? Lambda functions are a common choice to implement serverless microservices.